All right, guys, welcome back to episode 2 of the trailer that broke the world. In honor of that, I'm wearing my T&W Engineering t-shirt. That'll never work. So at this point, I'm still kind of in the design and planning stage, but I can go ahead and start working on some pieces. So after much thinking on people thinking the front end is going to break off on the trailer, I thought about making it a little bit more complicated to really get the trailer to lay nice and flat on the ground for loading. So originally I was going to do a solid mount tongue. Now I think I'm going to do an articulated tongue or a tongue that pivots up. That way the trailer can lay nice and flat. So I'm going to use these top link pins. They're 1.125" OD. I'm going to use them. One will be the pivot and one will be the lock on the articulating tongue itself. So the first thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to cut some sleeves. So I'm going to cut some sleeves similar to this. There'll be 4 that are 2 inches wide, and then there'll be 4 that are 3/4 inch wide. And I'm going to cut them out of this 1.5" OD quarter wall DOM tube. And what these will do is the 2 inch wide pieces will be sleeved into the tongue itself to help support the pins. And then there'll be the 3/4 inch pieces on each side of the mount for the pivot, just to help spread some of the load out from the pin. So the pins will go through like this. There'll be a support and a support ring that's attached to the mount for the pivot. So I'm going to go over to the horizontal bandsaw and I'm going to cut all these sleeves, and that's the first thing we're going to do. All right, so now that all our sleeves are cut, I'm going to go over to the belt grinder and I'm going to deburr the OD where the saw marks are, and then I'll come back with a hand tool and I'll deburr the ID, and then I'm going to end up switching the belts out on the belt grinder. And there's a little bit of surface rust on the outside of this, so I'm going to put the Scotch-Brite belt on the belt grinder and I'm just going to clean this rust off a little bit, and then we'll be done with the sleeves and we can move on to the next phase. All right, so I got the sleeves cut. So we've got the short ones here that go on what'll be on the outside of the pivot mount or the articulated mount. And then this 2 inch sleeve will be welded in through the 2x4 rectangular tube. And then this sleeve will go on the outside. So again, one's going to be a pivot per side, and then there'll be another one that'll be a locking pin. So we can pull that out and the tongue will articulate up and allow the trailer to sit completely flat when the airbags are let go. So now that these are cut, I'm just going to put everything here in this little tote for later. So at least we don't need those right away, but all the parts are cut and ready to go for when we do. So next, I have our hub assembly for the pivot. So I'm going to use a trailer hub and spindle as the pivot itself, and a trailer hub and spindle for the trailer wheel itself. So I've got 6 lug hubs, that way it should be nice and strong. And when you buy the assembly, it comes with a spindle unit. So I have to take some initial measurements of the hub itself, the spindle, and then here is our airbag as well. So I went ahead and got a larger, like a tractor trailer airbag. That way I can run lower PSI and I get a wider range of lift if I need it. So we've got this. So I need to take some initial measurements of what our bolt pattern is, our overall outer dimension, the snout OD, and then the OD of our spindle itself where it slides through. That way I can design up or clean up the design for the pivot arm itself. So I'm going to get these initial measurements, and then we'll go in and we'll finish the design work in CAD, and we can start cutting out the plates for our pivots. All right, so we're at my computer desk and we're gonna do some CAD work. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean up the design for the pivot arm. I had just put some placeholders in when I initially rough drew it. There's a picture floating around, I think on Instagram, where I did the initial drawing. So I just put some placeholders in. I didn't know the exact diameter of the spindle, what bolt pattern hub I was gonna use, the snout, etc. So now that I have those dimensions, I can go in and I can start cleaning that up. Hopefully you'll be able to see kind of what I'm doing. I haven't tried filming any computer screen stuff, so I'll bring the camera in and hopefully you can see what I'm doing. So we'll get everything designed up, and then from there we'll send it out to the plasma, and we'll go ahead and get the plates cut for the pivot arms themselves.